Hello everybody, my name is Richard Simko and I'm going to edit this photograph in Macphun Luminar. Before I start the tutorial, here is a little disclaimer. If you find my voice a little bit awkward, it's first time I'm recording my voice and putting it out on YouTube, so bear with me. With that said, let's move on and let's get into editing. So here we are in Lightroom and we need to get this picture into Luminar. To bypass the Lightroom demosaicing, we have to go to File, plug in Extras and transfer to Luminar. And let's wait for image to pop up in Luminar. Looks like I captured this photograph with particularly dirty polarizing filter, and there are some water droplets in it. So I'm going to use the Luminous stamp tool to remove them. Luminar stamp tool works similarly to Photoshop. Upon selecting it, you are prompted on a screen to click the source, and then you proceed cloning out unwanted areas. I want to keep this video as short as possible, so I speed up the cloning part and come back to you when I'm done. Okay, I'm done cloning, and now when I'm happy I just click apply and Luminar creates a new layer for me. Now I can proceed with further image adjustments. I'll be adding tools to my palette and proceed with editing. On this layer I'm only going to do global edits. So as a first I adjust the overall tone, which means exposure, contrast, highlight, shadows, whites and blacks until I'm happy. I can come back to this area anytime and refine my adjustments. Further to these, I adjust the color temperature and then saturation and vibrance. I'm very happy to see that Luminar also has Hsl Adjustments, which is hue, saturation and luminance. With this tool I can target particular colors and shift the hues to one or other way, adjust the saturation and adjust the luminance. As you can see, I'm going back and forth and adjusting the sliders until I'm happy. Another interesting tool that you can find in Luminar is called Foliage Enhancer. This tool affects the foliage in your photograph. You can shift the hue to cooler or warmer side and then adjust the amount. As with any tool, it's a good idea to be very subtle. Now we move on more localized adjustments. I create a new layer and I add the tone filter on it. What I'm noticing in the bottom right corner, the rocks are very dark, so I'm attempting to bring back some details into them. As you can see, I'm adjusting the smart tone and shadows and I can see the details coming back. However, the entire image is affected, which I don't want, so I'm selecting the brush tool. Until the moment I add a mask, this tool still affects the image globally. The moment I start to paint, the image turns back to its original state and the adjustments only shows up in the areas that I paint in the mask layer. Now I'm creating another layer, another tone filter, and I'm increasing the exposure. The effect I'm after, it's a pool of light coming through the foliage, through the canopy, hitting the leaves near the waterfalls. This way I try to increase the contrast and interest in the picture. Also note, I'm increasing the brightness in the area around the sky. With this adjustment, the image gets a little bit more depth. And here is another layer. On this one I'm using a Luminar specific filter which you cannot find in Lightroom. It's called Image Radiance. Basically what it does, at least visually to my eye, it increases contrast a little bit and gives it somewhat softer look. Another filter that is specific to Luminar is Soft Glow. With this filter I want to emulate haze, depth cueing that is coming out from the sky, and introduce a little bit of glow in the areas when water stream is hit by sun. There are many ways how to create masks in Luminar. In this case I started with the radial filter, paint in additional adjustments. At any time, if I want to know which areas are masked, I can turn the visibility of the mask on. It's very similar to quick mask in Photoshop. I'm creating another layer and I'm trying to bring back some details in the rocks. I use a Microstructure Filter, which is very good in bringing back some details and adding some sharpness. As with any filter, I don't really want to overdo it. I certainly don't want this effect to affect the water. So I'm gonna do the global adjustments first and then I paint in the areas on the rocks. Water stream remains unaffected. I'm really liking where this image is going. At this point I'm nearly done. Some additional final steps I want to do on a global basis. Little bit of contrast change, white balance, saturation, vibrance, and at the end I add a little bit of vignetting. At this point I'm very happy with my edit, so it's time to get back to Lightroom. I hit apply and wait for Luminar to generate the final TIFF file. It is a quite dramatic change compared to original picture. However, I still think it looks somewhat realistic. The image still retains a very good contrast. It has black values, it has white values. It doesn't have that gritty HDR look, which I'm not very fond of. I wasn't very careful with editing out the water droplets and lens flare. In bottom right corner I noticed a spot on the rock which wasn't cleaned up, so I'm going to clean it up in Lightroom. And one more final change. At the right edge of the image there is a little bit of water stream visible that is too blue and too bright, so I'm going to adjust its saturation and brightness. And with that done, I consider the image finished. Here it is in full glory.